President Biden approves of the debt ceiling bill. He has approved of this for some time. Now we actually have an official statement from President Biden. Just listen to this.
Sorry to keep you waiting, but we've got good news. We've got just spoke with Speaker McCarthy, and we've reached a bipartisan budget agreement that we're ready to move to the full Congress. And I think it's a really important step forward, and it takes the threat of catastrophic default off the table, protects our hard-earned and historic economic recovery, and the agreement also represents a compromise, which means no one got everything they want. But that's the responsibility of governing. And this is a deal that's good news, I believe you'll see, for the American people. The agreement prevents the worst possible crisis, a default for the first time in our nation's history. An economic recession, retirement accounts devastated, millions of jobs lost. It also protects key priorities and accomplishments and values that congressional Democrats and I have fought long and hard for. Investing in America's agenda that's creating good jobs in communities throughout the country. It protects Social Security, Medicare, and veterans, and so much more. The Speaker and I made it clear from the start that the only way forward was a bipartisan agreement. That agreement now goes to the United States House and to the Senate. I strongly urge both chambers to pass that agreement. Let's keep moving forward on meeting our obligations and building the strongest economy in the history of.
Okay, so he talks about Social Security. He talks about strengthening Social Security. Talks about veterans. He talks about all these different things. You're probably wondering, well, how is Social Security actually going to improve because of this bill? Well, here's the thing. It's not going to improve. It's going to stay the same. That's the difference. The issue would have been, and like he talked about, if we would have actually defaulted on our debts, Social Security recipients would not have received their benefits on a timely manner. It probably would have been anywhere from 2 to maybe even 6 weeks late because of a potential default. So that's actually big news there. That's what he's talking about as far as strengthening Social Security. As far as SNAP benefits, we are going to have some changes to that. I will address what's going on there. I will go through the whole breakdown of what's actually in this bill. There is some big news though, because there's actually a permitting reform in here that is actually going to help a pipeline between West Virginia and Virginia. That's huge. That's massive. That could actually help our costs here in the U.S. So that's great news there. But again, there's a lot of stuff in this. So let's start breaking it down. If you have any questions whatsoever, please ask your questions down in the comment section below. And the reason why I wanted to do a more updated video on this, simple. They put the text out last night. The text came out for the bill last night, so let's go through it. Now, I'm not going to go through the 99-page bill, but I will give you the highlights. First thing is a cap on discretionary spending. So the deal right now, or our debt limit, okay, the debt ceiling, is at $31.4 trillion. Well, we are actually going to suspend the $31.4 trillion debt ceiling until January 1st, 2025. This is actually pretty good news. And the reason why it's good news is because of a couple things. Right now, by suspending the debt limit, this means that we can continue to pay our bills and we don't have to worry. Well, we could have suspended it until, let's say, January 1st, 2024. But again, that's coming up pretty soon. We could have also suspended it until March 2024, which was looking very likely. However, by going to January 1st, 2025, this actually puts us past the presidential election, which means it will take a lot of the burden, a lot of the stress off of potential candidates, simply because they don't have to worry about a debt ceiling or a debt ceiling crisis again right before an election. So that's big news there. One thing that you need to keep in mind though is now it goes up to the Appropriations Committee. They have to figure this whole thing out. That could be a problem, but we don't know how problematic it's going to be just yet. But what we do know is that right now the the estimate for total non-defense discretionary spending, this excludes benefits for veterans, this would total $637 billion for the 2024 fiscal year. This actually is coming down just slightly from the $638 billion that we had a year before. So, and then in 2025, it will be a 1% increase. Okay. Let's see. As far as the increased defense spending, the deal is actually going to increase defense spending to $888 billion. This is actually what President Biden proposed as well in his 2024 budget. So right there, this is something that, well, it's defense spending. Republicans really wanted this. Well, this is exactly what President Biden asked for. So Republicans are saying, we are getting exactly what you asked for. Okay. It is about a 3% increase for the current year. So that is a little bit of a push, I guess. As far as IRS funding, and this is something that I misread yesterday. I believe I misread it because I didn't report it correctly, but the IRS got $80 billion from the Inflation Reduction Act, which didn't reduce inflation. But anyway, they got $80 billion. This $80 billion was supposed to bring in about $200 billion in additional revenue over 10 years. Well, the IRS, they earmarked a lot of this money for hiring new agents and extra tax revenue that it generated would offset the costs and whatever, right? Well, here's the thing. According to these reports, according to this bill, what is going to happen is that the IRS is going to lose $10 billion for the next 2 years. Okay? They're actually going to take, according to this bill, the Republicans were able to push this in there. They're going to get $20 billion, but not instantly. They're going to get $10 billion back every single year, okay, for 2024 and 2025. So this is going to help offset some of these costs, but again, this is just a small percentage. Another way they're getting money back, and this is a huge win for Republicans, is Kevin McCarthy and President Biden, they agreed that most of the unused COVID funding, that again, that's just sitting there, they're going to pull this back. They're going to claw it back. Okay? Estimates as of right now say it's between 50 and 70 billion dollars. So let's say we'll just say 60 billion dollars, and then you got 20 billion from the IRS. That puts us about 80 billion dollars we're able to pull back. Now, the White House does say that they are going to retain some of the funds. For instance, anything related to vaccine funding, they're going to hold on to. Housing assistance and support for Native Americans, they're going to hold on to all that. They're not going to send that back to the Treasury. Another big one is work requirements. Got a lot of questions on a couple of videos I did yesterday. People were wondering, are work requirements for everybody that are getting SNAP benefits and TANF? And the answer is no. It's not that way. The changes, and again, there's no change to Medicaid, okay? But the changes are that if you receive assistance, okay, if you receive any assistance from the federal government for SNAP or TANF, if you had one child, okay, or actually if you had no children and you were under the age of 50, okay, then you had to provide, you had to work. It was that simple. Well, instead of age 50, now they're bumping it up to age 54. I reported yesterday, I said under the age of 55, which is technically age 54, but I know some people are like, well, if I'm 55 years old, what does this mean? Well, that's the issue. That's the cutoff. Once you turn 55, it's different. So under the age of 54 and under, yes, there are work requirements instead of age 50 like it was before. Another thing, and I talked about this yesterday, and I think I played a clip or something from Speaker Kevin McCarthy, but he talked about how student loan debt, this is going to bring back about $5 billion per month in payments. Well, student loans, once this bill is signed, student loan repayments are going to continue. The current pause will end by late August. Okay? Now, Just because the current pause is going to expire, it doesn't mean there's not the possibility. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I'm not saying there's not a possibility that the student loan the student loan forgiveness that President Biden is attempting, which is currently held up in the Supreme Court, that's a big one. Okay, that is a big one. The plan right now is for about $430 billion in student loan forgiveness. So just keep that in mind. Student loan payment pause will expire. The student loan forgiveness plan that President Biden has put in place, that is still on the table. Okay? And then let's get to the energy permitting. This is the big one. And the reason why I say this is the big one is because this is what Republicans have been, and some Democrats have been trying to get included for quite some time. The person that's really pushing this is Senator Joe Manchin. Okay? Senator Joe Manchin has been pushing this for years because he understands what it takes and what is needed, but it's also for his state. Okay? This is for Virginia and West Virginia. But it's for the Mountain Valley Pipeline. It's currently 94% complete, and that's as of today, but it has been stuck in this odd permitting process for years. Now, this could be a big move because now this is going to open it up. They say it's estimated to bring in about 2,500 construction jobs. It's going to bring in about $40 million in new tax revenue for West Virginia, $10 million in new tax revenue for Virginia, and up to $250 million in royalties for West Virginia landowners. That's what's in this bill. Now, one thing I can tell you when it comes to this bill is this bill does not come without problems. Right now, we know that lawmakers are going to need to vote on this. The expectation, as of today, is that they're going to start voting on Wednesday. Okay? If they start voting on Wednesday, and just keep this in mind, there's still a chance some lawmakers will hold this up. There's a chance some lawmakers are going to vote no, and if there's more no's than yeses, if there's not 218 yeses in the House of Representatives, this bill will not pass. If it doesn't pass in the House, there is no chance it's going to pass in the Senate. That's part of the problem. The other problem, this is a big one, is that this new spending limit, the cap on spending, according to economists, is going to take its toll on our economy, meaning that we are likely to see an even weaker GDP, and that could potentially push us further into a recession. The projections as of right now is that the United States will end up in an official recession between the third quarter and fourth quarter of 2023. Well, if we're already going to end up in a recession, and then we are limiting the investments or the amount of spending that we can do as a government, guess what? That could mean a prolonged recession. That could also mean an even deeper recession. So again, keep that in mind. That right now, just because we're getting this debt limit increased or suspended for some time, it doesn't mean this is not coming without problems. The good thing and the benefit behind an increase is we are not going to default on our debts. We are not going to see millions of jobs simply evaporate within the first couple of months. That's not going to happen. But again, it still could. President Biden agrees and approved of this bill. Speaker Kevin McCarthy agrees and approved of this bill. It just depends. What is Congress going to think? And they still have a few days to read all the entire bill, the whole 99 pages of it. So, as soon as we get more information as to what is going on there, who agrees, who doesn't, and what we could potentially see moving forward, I promise I will bring you all the latest news and updates. Again, thank you guys for watching. Consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the next one.